Welcome, everybody. So happy to have you with us today on Wow Wednesday. I'm so happy to have all of you here. I'm Trish Carr, and I'm one of the founders of Women's Prosperity Network. And today we are going to be talking about growing your business and getting you where you want to go. So today, my guest is the fantastic Lisa Perez. And you see, she is here all ready to go. She has her blue boa on her background. Let me tell you a little bit about Lisa. She is a human resource professional. She's the CEO of HBL Resources Incorporated. And she is so lucky because she does what she loves. And she is putting, I like to say what I heard you say the first time we talked and you said what you do. You put the human
Yeah,
back in
yeah.
human resources.
Transforming the human in human resources. That's our
That's
that's our thing.
that's what we do. So Lisa Perez, thank you so much for being with us
My
today.
pleasure. So excited to be here and just share this great information with the community. I love the WPN community.
Well, we're together on that for sure. I'm really thrilled to have you here. I'm thinking this morning, where did we come up with the term human resources? Because it does, I mean, really, you need to put the
Yeah.
human back in human resources because think about it, we're looking at people as resources.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
get that we are resources to build a business, but there's something about that title
Yeah.
that just feels so not human,
Right. Right.
right?
Right.
And
Right.
and as you go out into your business, I'll bet you see that a lot, that especially in the bigger companies, how I know that when I left AT&T, I really did feel like just one of the human
Mm,
resources.
right.
I didn't
Right.
feel like I was special. I didn't, they had already gutted the whole place and everybody left. But
Mm,
yeah, so
yeah.
transforming the human and human
Yeah.
resources.
Yeah, it's a big task, right? Because much to your point, I think as we see larger organizations, they do treat their employees, right, as beings, right, as these things that are resources rather than human. And I always say, before a worker, before a teammate, an employee, whatever you call them at your organization, showed up at your place of employment for gainful employment and a wage, they were human first. Right. And we forget that sometimes, that yes, we can still get the things done that we need to get done. We can still be productive, have thriving businesses, and still treat people like human beings, right, who have a vested interest in what they're doing for you. But it's up to, I think, the employers and the managers out there to get that buy-in from the team member, the employee, based on how they're treated and how they're informed about the work that they do.
Well,
I
and
think it's so
isn't there a
important.
startling statistic about how many people, when they leave, say why they
Yeah.
left? Tell us about
Yeah.
that.
60% of employees, and this goes back to a SHRM survey, Society for Human Resource Management, one of the largest national organizations of HR practitioners. 60% of employees are leaving their organizations because of their managers' behavior, whether that's lack of recognition, lack of communication, any of those numbers of things that a manager has the ability, so in such a big number, to impact that worker in such a way that they're leaving not the organization but the manager who's supporting them. Or how I like to say, we are, as managers, we support our team members, we support our employees. And I think sometimes we tend to think about it the other way. They're helping me. It's reciprocal, really.
Well, and even as a person who runs a small company with a small team, right?
Yeah.
And we just have a handful of people supporting us. They may not be W-2 employees, so I'm
Right.
paying them payroll. They're getting
Right.
paid as 1099s, but
Right.
that's still my team.
Yes.
And I have to say, I'm guilty of commanding orders
Yeah. Yeah.
and not because I'm in. Okay, so anytime I need help from one of my teammates, I'm usually in a moment of, oh my gosh, I got something urgent.
Right, right,
So
right.
instead of saying, "Hi, how was your weekend? Did you
Yeah,
have a great time at the
yeah,
zoo?" I
yeah.
go, "Okay, here's what we got to get." And I'm
Listen.
sure that that's a part of what every manager deals
Yes.
with. Every one of us who has
Yeah,
any team
yeah,
probably feels that squish. So you work
yes,
with people to deal with that because that's the right
yeah,
away, come and
yeah.
answer it, get it done.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do disc training in addition to the topic that we're going to talk to today about, how do you determine that type of worker that you need? What are the first steps? We do training in disc, the model of human behavior, and that's very behavioral. What you just described, it's that high D personality. Some might call it that A type, right? Bull in a china shop, go in and get what I need and get out, right?
Yes,
While we might be dealing with someone who's on that people side of the spectrum and needs that. Hey, how are you doing? How was the weekend? By the way, I've got this. And you know what? It only takes a few seconds more.
I know.
So that's a learned behavior. And I think we're all guilty of, that, oh, I just need what I need right now. And I'll talk to you later about the weekend.
I
Um,
know.
so I,
I just had a friend of mine who said to me, at work they're telling me that I'm too direct, too
yeah,
coarse. I said, that's
yeah,
because you're not saying, "Hi, how was your weekend?"
exactly.
She says,
Exactly.
"Yeah, and I know I'm so direct." She said, "So what I started doing was every email I write, I put it in ChatGPT now and ask it to change it to sound eloquent."
Or a little bit
So
more approachable, right?
it's much
Yeah,
more
and those are
approachable.
learned behaviors. I'm much to your point. I'm that high D personality, and that was a journey I had to take in my own career, and that's kind of the beginning of where transforming the human and human resources started. Trish, it really did start with me.
Yes.
You know, it
How
really did.
did you get into doing this?
Geez, I fell into human resources, thank God. I was a legal secretary like Nancy, interestingly enough,
Right.
right out of high school and college, well, some college at that point, and really didn't care for it. It was too much of the paperwork, and it wasn't very dynamic and didn't change. An opportunity came. I left the legal profession, went into hospitality, was a front desk clerk at an airport Marriott in Orlando. And 10 years later, I'm director of recruitment and succession planning at that same organization. And
Wow.
so it was quite a great career. I still, stayed in hospitality, but the HR director at the time said, "Hey, our admin is leaving." He knew I had an administrative background. He said, "Go ahead and apply for it." And I got the opportunity, and I loved it ever since. The perfect balance of people and paperwork. That paperwork always changed, right?
Yes.
There's always a new law to influence. People are dynamic; they're always different, right? There's not one that are the same. And
Right.
I found my niche, and I just absolutely love what I do.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So when you're working and it feels like play, that's what we all
Oh
want.
yeah. Oh yeah. All the time. I'm happy to be in my home office any day of the week and even weekends sometimes. So I have to put the brakes on myself sometimes because I love it so much.
What made you go and hang out your own shingle?
Corporate America.
Corporate America. It's funny you say that because April just wrote in the chat.
Yeah.
I work for an amazing corporation with
Yeah.
tons of benefits, but the management of my department is abysmal,
Yeah.
all ego and very petty.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely. And that's why, right? Because I could stay at one organization and continue my career impacting one organization at a time, or I could go out on my own and cover the masses. I have been able to impact hundreds of companies in the almost 13 years that we've been in business, where I could maybe only have impacted three if I'd stayed
mm,
employed. And so that was a big interest to be able to impact more. You can't transform the human and human resources in smaller scale. I had to do it in a larger scale, and I've been able to work with some great organizations.
well, having helped that many people, it's got to feel so
Yeah.
good that you made the
It
right
does.
choice.
It does. It does. And you know what? Let's face it, right? The flexibility of our entrepreneurial world. Much like I mean, I haven't gone on a 1 or 2 month vacation like Nancy is yet,
No, I
yet.
know.
But I can step away. I was out in my backyard yesterday, just doing some concrete work. We're doing a redo back there, and I could step away from my day and block my calendar and have that flexibility. You don't get that with, corporate America. I can go pick up, which I plan to do, my granddaughter on Friday, and I don't have to say, hey, can I leave early because she's in Lake Worth and I'm in Miramar, right? So there's just that flexibility. It's hard work. They say, entrepreneurs are the only people that would work 80 hours to avoid working 40. That's
Right,
definitely me.
exactly.
But we work hard, play hard.
Yes, absolutely. So you obviously, here you are, you got your own place, you're doing your thing, you're helping thousands of people, you have a team. So
Yes.
one of the things that people always ask me, well, I'll say to people, it's time for you to grow into a team. And I hear a couple of objections. One is, my favorite is, I'm not ready.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
my favorite. So
Yeah.
how do you get ready to be ready to go ahead and expand
Yeah.
your team?
Yeah, great question. I think tagging on to something you and Nancy talked about last Wow Wednesday was making sure that you're financially secure enough to do so, right? That's the first thing, having the financial resources. And whether that's applying for grants to get that money in, whether that's getting a line of credit to help you scale your business, you've got to be ready. And for me, I'll risk my finances all day, every day. But when I have to do that for someone else, that's a different story. Now I've got someone else's livelihood on the line, right? We want to be more careful with that so that we're not playing the hokey pokey with those people. So I think financial resources is the first thing, right? And then the second thing is know what it is you're going to give them, right? And whether it's an independent contractor or a W-2 employee, which I hope we'll get an opportunity to, discuss some of those distinctions, is, take a month of your work week. Take a notepad, and every time you're doing something that is non-revenue producing,
There you
right? You're
go.
not making a sales call. You're not doing client fulfillment, whatever those things are. I know for me, it started with the receipts. And having to log the receipts in QuickBooks, you're right, that I didn't want to have to deal with. It started with the social media, although this year I have to start showing up a little bit more, but I have a social media piece that's just communication and marketing, right? That's not necessarily revenue producing. It can be, but it's not the priority, right? It's more of
Yeah,
a marketing thing. And
right.
so
Marketing versus sales.
exactly. And so take note of all those things. And I used to write down, oh, I don't want to be doing this. And oh, I don't want to be doing this. And oh, I don't want to be doing this. And at the end of a month, you'd be surprised how many things you have the opportunity to delegate, right? And then make sure that you've got those systems. But that's getting into, I think, a whole nother Wow Wednesday is how
Well,
to
but the
actually,
systems are how do I bring somebody on?
absolutely. So when we think about knowing what you're going to give them, right? Because you can't bring somebody on and then not give them anything to do. That's going to cut yourself in the foot. Is making sure that you know whether or not it's going to be an independent contractor or a W-2. And so there's a couple of distinctions that I think it's really important that people understand in terms of the difference. The first thing is behavioral control, right? Who controls the hours that they'll work, the equipment that they'll use, the training that they're given to do what they do, the ability for them to have other revenues outside of your own, right? That you're providing for them. There's so many things that need to be considered because there's a lot of litigation and regulations that are currently changing in a major way right now regarding misclassification of employees. Okay.
Meaning that you should have a 1099 when it's really a 1099.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the
Ex-
biggest thing. So
exactly.
let's talk about that because
Okay.
most of us hire people for projects
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
as a support person to update our website, handle our
Yes.
systems, whatever they're
Yes.
doing, even if it's someone just making sales calls for us.
Right. Right.
What are the specifications for someone who's a 1099?
Yeah. So it's first it's pay, right? Typically 1099s are paid by the job, by the project. There can be some hourly distinctions, but you've got to be really careful. You want to make sure that they are set up to invoice you, right? For those pay, that you don't have, that they also have other clients or a legit company, right? They don't have to have a federal ID number, right? But they have to have a legit source of revenue that's other than your own. They have to have their own work supplies. If you are you're sending them the laptop, the phone number, or the phone, to use in all of the equipment rather, then that might trigger a W-2 situation. So it's not really just one thing in and of itself. It's a combination of many things. Does that independent contractor have the ability to set their own rate, right? Or have you indicated that this is what it's going to be? So that's something of importance as well. Can they work for more than one firm? If you're giving somebody a no compete in an offer letter or in an agreement, well, that disqualifies the nature of the independent contractor in and of itself. In addition to that, they want to be able to ensure that either one, and this is kind of both, right, can terminate the relationship at will at all times, right? Employers can generally, separate from an employee at any time. The employee can quit at any time. But the independent contract, you want to make sure there's that stipulation that recognizes that reason to do so as well, right? That 30-day cancellation clause or something like that.
Right.
You also want to make sure that while you might be training the person in how your company does its things, they should already bring the skill set to do whatever it is that they're being tasked to do. If it's web development and web design, they know how to do that. You don't have to train that, right? They bring that skill required. Whereas an employee, you may have to train them on how to do that. And then I think one of the biggest distinctions is how the time is being utilized, right? Do you send the project and say, get it done by the end of the week? I don't care when you do it, but just get it done. That's one thing. If you're telling the worker, come in 9 to 12 every day, clock in, I want to make sure you're on the Zoom call or whatever way you use to communicate with your VA, that might trigger an employee situation because now you're locking them into times set by you, truly the employer.
And really, though, when I think about it, who's going to check on me? That's what I ask. Who's going to know?
Yeah,
what's the answer to that question?
Yeah, so let's put this case scenario. Okay. So, and these are real scenarios that have happened in my, journey out there. Let's say you do have an independent contractor, right? They are not taking out any taxes, right? It's not a paycheck, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's your virtual assistant,
Yeah, it's your virtual
it's
assistant.
The person who does your social media, right?
Right. And so suddenly, now it's tax time. They've got this big tax bill. Maybe they didn't understand the true nature of the independent contract, right? Depending on what was going on and how that was executed. And suddenly they've got this big tax bill that they weren't aware that they would have, right? Something lost sight. And they start asking some questions. And all they need to do is pick up the phone and go to the Department of Labor, who will analyze that role and job to really discover, were they treated truly as an employee or were they truly treated in every intent and purpose as an independent contractor? The Department of Labor is the one that will make that determination. Interestingly enough, the IRS can also do it. And I'm going to give you guys a little tip here. If you Google IRS form SS-8, IRS form SS-8. That form is actually one that the IRS utilizes so that employers looking for, how are they going to classify a worker, they have guidance in that document. They submit it to the IRS, and the IRS can help you determine, based on that questionnaire, whether you have an employee situation or an independent contractor. That's the best way to be proactive and make sure that the way you are treating the worker is the way you will classify them. And then you've got the IRS backing you in that determination.
So I would just go Google IRS form SS-8.
Yep, IRS.
And when I do that, I'm going to get sort of a checklist that I'll be able to go through to help me decide if it's the 1099 or a W-2.
That is correct.
Okay. Is there, and I know there are lots of questions, so I'm going to be opening up the lines and taking questions on Facebook as well at about the half-hour point.
Okay.
So I know that for me, a lot of this comes up and I could spend days on this, but I want to move into, how do I hire the right people? First thing is I'm not ready. Second thing is, if I hire somebody, I'm just going to spend hours training them. I don't want to deal with it. I just rather do it myself. Or I keep hiring people and they're not the right people. They don't stay. They're not the right skill set. So
Yeah.
what do I need to look for when I hire somebody?
Yeah, there's so many things that can happen during the interview process. And instead of hiring someone who could actually do the job, we hire someone that we really got along with
We
in that
like.
yeah, right. That it's called a halo effect. Okay.
Uh,
And actually in my book, we talk about the structure of an interview to really help you determine. We also talk about some of the mistakes that we can make in that interview process, halo being one of them. And so I would encourage individuals when they're talking to potential workers, whether it's a vendor or whether it's an employee, right? The questions need to be based on, can they do the job, right? So get an example of what it is you need done, right? Let's say it's a client sales calls, right? Tell me about a time, right? It's behavior based interviewing models without giving them the end result you're looking for. Tell me about a time you had a difficult customer or a difficult client. What was the nature of that difficulty and how did you handle it? Okay.
oh, that's
And let
good.
them articulate what that was. There's a big difference between that question and tell me about a time you had a difficult customer. What was the nature of that difficulty and how did you make them happy?
How did
Right
you
now,
handle it?
I just gave you the end result I was looking for. So what are you going to pick? A result that you made the client happy, as opposed to that open-ended one that said, what did you do? Right? Because that could end up saying, oh, I got my manager because they were too upset. Okay, that might not be the empowerment we're looking
Right,
for in
that's
our
some of
roles,
it. We
right?
want people to take accountability and responsibility, not people who are going to get me on the phone.
Exactly, right? I've got my other things to do. That's what I hired you for. And so, how we ask those questions is really critical. I love digging at resumes, right? Developed and implemented, yada, yada, yada. Well, tell me what part of the development you played,
Yeah,
right? If
exactly.
if they cannot articulate that well, and then it's, oh, I was really just support staff. Oh, okay, you didn't really develop it, right? You just typed up the stuff they gave you, right? Those are the kinds of things that you really want to dig in. And again, my book has tons and tons of behavior based interview questions that can be asked as well. So it's
Well,
it's
tell us the
how you
name of
ask
your
the
book.
question.
What's the name of your book?
So thank you. My book is The Complete Manager Makeover. You see it right here on the shelf as well. It is available on Amazon, but if you get it on our website, hblresources.com, you also get the desk reference bookmarks, which are kind of like a great cheat sheet and excerpts from everything from DISC to generational diversity to the PRIDES model of interviewing, which is the interview model that we've developed that can really result in the best hire.
Well, and that's the idea is to have the right model that
Yeah.
works when you're hiring and
Yes.
have something that'll work over and over and over again.
Absolutely. Systems, right? And it's a system of interviewing.
Exactly. And I just did in the chat, I just put the book and a link to your website so you
Oh,
can get it.
awesome. Thank you. And I did put the IRS form in there
Okay, great.
for the Zoom callers. I don't know how to get it into Facebook. I'm not
I'll
on
do
there.
I'll do a copy and paste and
Sounds great.
we
Sounds
can
great.
we can definitely figure that out, no problema.
You
So
bet.
now the next question is, all right, so I get your book or I work with you, which is even better because I
Mhm.
know you have a membership for human resource
We
professionals.
do.
Well, how does that work?
So we actually have three memberships. One for individual managers, right? The people manager who just needs some guidance and support in how to manage that individual or their group. We also have an executive and HR administrator membership as well. That one is focused on someone who is running the HR department for their organization, but they might not have the full HR acumen necessary. We help and come alongside them and support them with technologies, resources, an HR portal, and of course guidance from me on biweekly calls. And then a business owner membership, which is for larger organizations who want that support of an HR. They need that HR fractional, if you will, but also they also get access to that portal of HR information. It's like a DIY model, but they also get that a learning management system, an LMS for their employees to have training and development, training offered in sexual harassment, violence in the workplace, bloodborne pathogens, OSHA compliance, you name it, that over 150 titles in that learning management system. And now their employees can start to learn and develop as well. So it gives them that resource.
That's great. That's really
Yes.
good. They have what they need.
Exactly, exactly. And with the biweekly call, much like the WPN, model of that coaching program, which is so valuable, we offer that kind of support. They can bring their questions. We deliver 30 minutes of content and then have Q&A at the end. And everybody learns from everybody, just like at WPN.
Yeah, absolutely. So now we know what we need to do to be ready. Second, we
Yes,
know how to hire, whether it's a W-2 or an a 1099, and the
yes,
IRS SS-88 form will help us with that.
yes, yes.
We also know we need to be financially ready.
Correct, correct.
There is a fine line between I have way more than enough money to pay somebody than I need to hire somebody. I'm making the money I need to pay my bills, but now it's time to hire somebody. And I have
Correct.
to have the faith that I'm going to replace that. I'm going to give that person work for $400 a week, and I'm going to
Right,
make sure I replace that $400 with a new client
right.
to pay for it. So that's the thing. Make sure you walk this line of, am I ready financially?
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
usually ready financially when your business is growing to the point where you got to do everything and that's not getting done. And there are
Exactly,
people who want you, but you can't fulfill.
exactly,
So hire
exactly.
somebody so you can fill on all those people. Now, the big question is, where do I find these great people that I'm going to hire? That's
Yeah,
an
yeah.
issue.
Yeah, yeah, great question, especially as the workforce gets shrinking smaller and smaller. Fortunately, most of us are going to look for someone that's remote, right? And everybody wants remote work these days. But before that, I think it's important to make sure that everyone understands that depending on the kind of worker, right, W-2 or independent contractor, if you're hiring a W-2 employee because you want more control, right, of the hours that they work, the way that they do it, all those kinds of things, very important. You'll need, a federal ID number. You'll need to establish a payroll system to make sure you're withholding wages. You'll want to make sure that they are set up and given the right forms. You require an I-9 form, a W-4 form. That's for taxes. I-9 says they have legal authorization to work in the United States. You'll want to set up payroll taxes, and you've got to anticipate 7.65% of that wage is going to be in payroll taxes. 7.65% is a good starting point. So it's just not that hourly wage or whatever that salary is, it's the payroll taxes as well. And you'll have to set up an unemployment SUTA account, state unemployment tax account, right? Part of that, those taxes go into that account in the event they ever need unemployment. And I can go on and on and on with that, but I'm going to provide a resource later that you can get all of that information. But I wanted to make sure that we talked about that. Now,
Ah,
where do you find these people, right? There's a couple of different ways. If it's an independent contractor, places like Fiverr and Upwork, there are a few online job portals. There's one particularly in the Philippines, onlineph.com. I'll look it up real quick, where you can find virtual assistants in the Philippines who will work. Now, the only distinction is you've got to remember they're 12 hours difference. Okay.
yeah.
So you've got to consider when you are, employing someone externally, you'll be required to have them fill out a W8BEN. W8BEN, that's an IRS form. Doesn't have to be filed. It's almost like a W9 for independent contractors, but you got to have that on file in the event you ever need that, right? Because you're sending wages outside of the United States, and so that's required. So Fiverr, Upwork, you can search for your own, right? Do a job ad. One of our memberships, that executive membership I mentioned, the one that helps HR administrators as well, we offer that to HR consultants so they can use our job posting portal, right? And you can post that job and it goes to Indeed and ZipRecruiter and Career Builder and LinkedIn organic feeds and all those kinds of things. So you're covering the masses. And then you start taking those applications and you can interview your candidates directly. Okay. And how you post that position will dictate whether you're looking for a contractor. You can post them, whether it's a W-2 or an independent contractor. You just have to disclose that that's what you're looking for. I think another great place is the WPN directory.
Yes.
Right? You never know who might be out there that does what you're looking for them to do, and we can leverage each other's talents and skill sets. But I've sourced, in fact, my digital marketing firm is from the WPN directory. So I
Yes.
highly recommend that you look for virtual assistants that are in our community, web designers and developers and all the things, all the things. So
Yeah,
hopefully
all the things.
that
Even,
gave us some.
sometimes we need to bring training in,
Yes.
diversity training and new skills training, and there are a lot of people within the community who do that as well.
Yes.
So
Yes.
let me go ahead. I want to give everybody an opportunity to ask questions. I know Alicia has a question. I have some questions in the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and give everybody the opportunity to ask a question. So if you're on Zoom, you can just raise your hand. If you're on the telephone, just open your line with a *6. And when I see your line open and we're finished with whoever's asking their question now, I'll come to you. And while we do that, while I get myself ready to give everybody the opportunity to talk, tell everybody about that list you talked about, because I feel like when you just said you got to have this form, that form, this form, I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah,
really?
that's it's a lot. I know. So in the chat, I will go ahead and put a link to an ebook that we developed. As I started to realize, our smaller companies. I'm a chamber member of my local chamber of commerce, and small businesses need help with setting up, how do I hire that first employee? And so we created an ebook called Steps to Scale on a Firm Foundation, Hiring Your First Employee. And so I put that in the chat. It's a bit.ly/steps to scale. And that ebook will serve you well in all of the systems you need to have set up. It has a little checklist that you can start to earmark. What tasks do I need to delegate and get off my plate so I can do the business development and the revenue producing things? And it'll guide you accordingly in that way. It'll also provide some checklists, some of the documents you need to have, some of the links to the source pages, right? The Department of Labor or the Wage and Hour Division, to get information that's going to be critically important as you consider scaling your business. So, because I could go on and on with the list of things you need. And then, of course, they differ based on whether you're hiring an independent contractor or an employee.
Wow. And you give this away? It seems like
I
I should be
do.
paying you for this kind of
It is.
gold.
I know. Trust me. I just want, I'm focused, invested in organizations who want to do HR right. And when they do, they get that resource, and it starts them on a firm foundation. That's my heart, right? Those who want to do it right have an immediate resource, and I think there's even a link in there if they wanted to schedule some consultation time and what have you. So happy to provide that as a resource.
Yeah, Lisa is so good at just giving you some information on your questions. And I'll tell you that, when I hear how I have to do it and go about it, I want to be in compliance.
Yeah.
And while it sounded like a lot that you have to do, the W-9 and this and that, it's really not all that much. It
Yeah.
just sounds like a lot because we're not familiar with any of it.
Right. Right. Right.
So all of it sounds like, oh, that's a lot, but it's really not. And I want to be right. I don't want to make the person that I've hired have any issues. I want to make sure the IRS has no issues with me. So thank
Right.
you so much
Yes.
for
Yes.
that resource, because
Oh, my
that will
absolute
make the
pleasure.
difference. That
My
will make the
absolute
difference.
pleasure. My absolute pleasure. I
Yeah.
think it'll serve you well. And it also give you some things, what you can ask and what you can't ask, because there are some legally impermissible questions you can ask during a W-2 employee hire. There's lots of laws. And again, my book goes through all of those laws too. What can trip a wire if you're going to be hiring a W-2 employee?
Yeah,
It's
like
a little
something
less.
as simple as how many children do you have?
Yes, yes, yes. And even, oh, I love your accent. Where are you from? Right? Something as simple as that, as we try to build rapport with our candidate, can trip some wires as well. So there's a lot of minefields, but as long as you know them, you can steer away from them.
Absolutely, absolutely. But let me go ahead and bring on Alicia Alexander, who has a question. Go ahead, Alicia,
Awesome.
open up your line.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for taking my question.
Good
Um,
morning. Let me see if I can turn up your sound a little bit. Go ahead.
okay, I'm turning it up on my end too. All right, just a little bit about me before I ask the question. I am a human resources professional as well, and I am part of SHRM. Um,
Awesome.
my focus in my business is work culture. So, with your DISC test, are you familiar with authentic appreciation and Clifton strengths?
Oh, I heard effective appreciation and
No, no,
what
no.
strengths?
Sorry, authentic.
Yes. Yes. We
Authentic appreciation and Clifton strengths.
yes, strength finders.
What's your
Yes.
take on it?
Yes, throughout my 30 plus, I added plus a couple of years ago, years, I've seen various models. I feel that for me, in my practice, the DISC model is easily palatable. It works. It's a quick assessment. We have various sizes, right? You could do a 6 page or a 62 page, right? That kind of thing. It was the model that resonated well for me. It's the model that actually help me be a better HR practitioner. But they do marry well, Strengths Finders and DISC. Some organizations I've done both. I am not a Strengths Finders practitioner, but I have resources to feed into for that purpose. But I am familiar with them. You have to be familiar with all of them to really select the one that fits right for you. So I'd love to have some conversations and see where we might partner if the future ever needs that.
Sure. And to speak on authentic appreciation.
I'm sorry, you
What
speak
do you
on.
what do you know about authentic appreciation?
That's what I do.
Oh,
So
okay. So that's an appreciation process?
No, it's an actual manual book out by Dr. Gary Chapman and Dr. Paul White.
Paul White, yes, yes.
Yeah.
So I am familiar with it. I can't say I've read the book yet, but I'd love to have a conversation and talk about it. In fact, last year we had a speaker on National Management Training Week. It's another initiative that we do. And she spoke about authenticity in the workplace. So she
Okay.
has had some knowledge of that, but I certainly would be interested in talking more about it.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
All right.
Awesome. Alicia, that's great. And that's a good point that there are a lot of different mechanisms out there that
Yes.
you can use. DISC is one of them. Another bank is one of them that Peg
Mm-hmm.
Duchesne uses.
Mm-hmm.
Strength Finders I have used and was really good. So there are lots of different methods you can do. The most important thing is you do something,
Yes. Yes.
something. Because you want to, it's great when you interview people and they give you the perfect answers to everything, but
Yes.
it still doesn't tell you enough about their attitude, what motivates them, how quick they are to move when you need them to move. So there are
Exactly.
lots of things that you can find out with a DISC profile. So
Yes.
that's great that you use that.
Yeah.
Let me go to Elisa Colasso. Elisa, go ahead and open up your line.
Thank you so much. I just want to say thank you to Lisa, and publicly say it to in front of everybody because she's been my mentor since 2009. I've known Lisa when I was starting my HR career, and she's been amazing all these years, not only as my HR support, but also in my entrepreneurial journey. She's the one that invited me to come to WPN and the reason why I'm here. And she's been all in the background, always supporting me. So I just want to thank her for that and also for everything that she's doing for the community. I really, really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Elisa. It has been a pleasure to know you and learn from you as well.
Yeah, and everybody on Facebook is asking me for your links again, so that's great. Elisa, thank you
Awesome.
so much.
Awesome.
You know each other for a long time, and Elisa is a single shingle, right?
Yes.
Working on
Yes.
her own,
She's
and
incredible.
she is incredible.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even an individual sole owner needs
Yes.
HR support.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So what kinds of things, Elisa, would you recommend someone who's individually in business do in HR in terms of hiring, taking care of people? What kind of things do you do with Lisa?
Well, I do a lot of things, but mostly getting organized and really strategizing, like really making sure that I'm spending my time in the things that are more money generating. And oh, like she said, starting to make that list. I'm not there yet, but definitely in the future, I think I will be ready to do that. And it doesn't, already having that kind of awareness, it's important because you always want to go into that next step and start getting ready for that. So that's what she, been always encouraging me and always asking lots of questions, always challenging me. Which
Well,
I
Giving you
appreciate.
homework.
Yeah, she gives me homework. We meet every 2 weeks. And she gives me homework and holds me accountable. So
Awesome.
it's great to have that accountability partner.
yes, that is really
Yes.
important to have somebody who's getting you ready, right? The first question
Yes,
we asked was, "Are you ready? How do I get ready?"
Yeah.
correct.
And that's also why I introduced her to WPN, because many of the things that I do today I learned from the best, Trish and
Mm-hmm.
Nancy and Susan, right? Those are, I know my skill set and I know where to get more and even better
Right, and
at
that's
things.
important to recognize
Absolutely.
that you can do everything on your own, even if you don't have the resources right now to pay for somebody. But there is always somebody in the community you can exchange ideas with, you can support each other,
Yeah.
you can swap, whatever it is. There are
Yes.
always
Yes.
opportunities.
Absolutely.
Well,
Thank
thank
you
you
so
for-
much, Lisa.
Yes.
So Trish, I don't know if it popped up on your end. I have a pop-up question in front of me from April H. Can I take that question?
Please do.
Okay. April says, if I need to hire a person for a job or project that I have no expertise in, how do I know what questions to even ask to make sure I'm hiring the right skill set? That is an excellent, excellent question. So I think there's a couple of things you can do, April. Research the role. Understand what are the basic requirements for the key responsibilities. What are the skills that are needed to successfully carry out the job? And you can ask questions about those skills. Consult experts, right? Find out, there's an ebook for everything or somebody on YouTube, willing to teach you anything. Ask the questions. If you're looking for a web developer and you have no expertise there, Google, what does a good web developer vendor need to have, right? So there's all of those resources out there as well. Consult some of the experts, and in consulting those experts, you might even find the vendor that's right for you. If you're hiring an employee, then you can consult the expert and say, hey, I'm looking to bring this in-house. What are some of the things that I should be asking so that they can guide you accordingly? Obviously, develop the job, description, the qualifications that you need, and be ready to ask specific questions. But I would start there. You could also request work samples of them, right? If you're looking for a web developer, show me some of your web development. If you're looking for a videographer, show me some of your end results. That's what I did. I asked for samples when I was looking for a videographer for some of our speaking engagements. I looked at all of them and I said, what end result do I want my corporate video to have? And I selected the one that had the best end result for what I was looking for. And then you could also consider technical assessments or tests. Be consistent, especially if you're going to be hiring a W-2 employee, that you provide the test or ask for the assessment for all of those top candidates. It doesn't have to be every applicant, but just those top tier considered ones. And always look for a cultural fit, whether you know the job, don't know the job, to all of you out there. What is the culture of your organization? What are your tenets? Are you about integrity, honesty, confidentiality? What are those things? And speak to those things and ask about those things, because that cultural fit is critically important. As we all know in the WPN community, what's the most important thing, I think, in the WPN community? It's the co-opetition. not the competition that exists
Mhm.
in this community. Speak to that as you onboard, people onto your team, vendor or employee.
Good. Oh, that was great. And that made me think of some things too. So you asked for work samples. What do
Yeah.
you think about giving them an activity to do and see
Yep.
how they do it?
Yep, that's absolutely permissible. Again, the key there is consistency, right? Now, if there is going to be work product that is actually going to be of benefit to your organization, that might have to be paid, but we'd have to talk a little bit more about the nature of that activity to determine whether it can be part of the interview process or whether it has to be a paid interview section of your process.
Can I bring somebody in for a day, a half a day, and have them work for me and pay nothing just to see how they work?
So we wouldn't recommend that, right? Anytime you have worked hours and your organization is benefiting from the results of that work, that truly is considered paid time. There's nothing wrong with saying we do a 1 day, paid activity to get you acclimated and what have you, but I would highly recommend considering paid. There's really no voluntary kind of work unless you're getting into an internship situation, which is a whole nother Wow Wednesday.
Right. Well, let's say I hire somebody and one of my mentors always told me to fail forward fast.
Yes.
So
Yes.
once I identify that that person's not for me, it could happen in 2 days or 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do I need to know about releasing them? Like, are there things I must do so
Yeah.
that I don't get charged with unemployment
Unemployment. Yeah.
or like that's what I think about is somebody has to be separated from my business, which is the nice way corporate puts it.
That's correct, right? Yeah.
But that's not
Separated from
really what
employment.
it is,
Yeah,
right?
I always hated the word terminated. It just sounded so rough, but yeah,
Separated.
separated from employment. So a couple things. Depending on your state, right? You'll want to check and see if this is an employee, right? A W-2 employee. If you have look up your unemployment office, right? Reemployment offices, some organizations, some states call it, and find out what is the base period for an employer. The base period here in Florida is about 90 days. Okay. The worker needs to work that base period for you, most likely, right? There's a lot of caveats here to be a chargeable employer. So you let them work to day 91, 92, you're likely going to be a chargeable employer and that'll hit your unemployment account. That's a claim, right? And so that's going to not one might not spike your rate, but several may, right? And so you'll want to make sure what is that base period for you as an employer. And yes, fail forward. Absolutely. The minute you know it's not the right fit, it's okay to share the fact that it's not the right fit. Have that conversation compassionately, go through any details, that need to be, gone through. When is the last paycheck going to come? What will you tell future employers should they list you as a reference, right? Depending on how long it was and what have you. But there's another ebook on my website for that, separation conversations. So know the base period is the first thing if you don't want to be chargeable. And then as soon as you do know it's not the right fit, have that transparent conversation.
And then Peg Duchesne is asking, does the base employment period apply for Filipino VAs? I'm going to think.
It doesn't, right? No, that's an international worker. Interestingly enough, Peg, during the pandemic, independent contractors who had never been eligible for unemployment benefits had now become eligible for unemployment benefits. I'm still navigating where is that claims fund coming from, because as an employer right now we only pay for our W-2 separated employees and not independent contractors, but that money's coming from somewhere. And so interestingly enough, but no, that would not qualify for any external outside of the United States workers.
Good question. And when I hire, I know there are certain things I need to make sure I navigate the right questions. So be sure to get Lisa's book, number one.
Yeah.
Number two, be sure to go to that bit.ly that I put in Facebook as well as in the chat and get your list of what you need in place.
Yeah.
But
And
what
the
I
book is available on Amazon, but again, if you get it from my website, I'll sign it for you if that matters. And then
whoa.
that desk reference guide, those bookmarks come complimentary as well. So
And you only get the bookmarks at your website.
at the website, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so go to
Amazon
the
does not give
website
it.
and get them there because you get all the bonuses.
Yeah, for sure.
But we talked about there are certain things to not ask when you're hiring. Are there certain things when you're firing after that initial 90-day period that I'm not supposed to say, or that's not a basis for
Yeah,
termination or
yeah.
anything like that?
The same things you shouldn't trigger on the way in on the interview is the same things you shouldn't trigger on the way out, right? Things that it has to do with anything that is an illegal reason, right, for hiring, which is, gender and marital status, Title VII, right? Anything under that Title VII umbrella, which is race, religion, sexual orientation. I mean, it's growing a lot, right? So Google Title VII, you'll see the list of all the things,
Right.
and that you're making sure to communicate that it is what is the business related reason, right? Now, the truth of the matter is states are employment at will, which means either you can quit or I can, terminate you at any time, right? That's the nature of employment at will. But when it comes to litigation, you better believe the courts want a reason. You know what I mean? I could fire you for, I don't like your red shoes. It's not an illegal reason, but I can't terminate you or separate your employment because of your race, your religion, you're a Seventh-day Adventist and I need you on
Your
Saturdays,
age,
right? Those kinds of things.
yeah, Nancy just wrote in that Nancy Jones
Yeah,
age.
your age, exactly. So you want to be ensure it's a bona fide occupational qualifying reason to separate employment, skill set, work performance, so that documentation becomes really important to make sure that your team members know when they are and aren't performing.
Wonderful. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Lisa, this was so great.
Yeah, this has been so
I
fun.
got so much great information.
I'm
And,
so glad.
these are the slippery slopes
Yeah.
where you're hiring people. And when you talk about that halo effect, that's the
Yeah.
one thing I would say that's going to get you in trouble.
Yes.
Because as much as you love this person on the other side of your desk
Yeah.
or on the Zoom that you're talking to,
Yeah.
we can't get into, well, how old were you when this happened? Or how many kids do you have? And are you still married? I mean,
Yep.
all of those questions that you get into because I love your red shoes and we have so much
Exactly. Exactly. Your scarf is lovely. Oh, you're from my town. Yeah, that's
Right.
something pretty dangerous because they really can't do the job. So I'm gonna offer one extra thing. I hope you don't mind, Trish, but
No, go.
for anybody who gets the book on our website with the bookmark, because I know you're vested in your business, I'm going to offer a complimentary 30-minute consultation so they can write out any questions they have specific to them. And we will honor that until the end of this year. So if you are from the WPN community and you get our book as a result of this, we will definitely honor a 30-minute consultation for you as you scale your business.
I love it. I just wrote it in the chat. Hopefully, get
Awesome.
the book and get a free 30-minute consult.
Yep. Yep.
All right, good. I'm going to put it on Facebook as well, hopefully.
Yes.
Oh, this has been such great information. Thank you so very much. Barbara Johnson says, so great, especially as I'm getting ready to hire my first employee.
Yay.
I'm definitely getting those books.
Yay, good for you.
Yes,
for you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lisa.
My
Thank
absolute
you so
pleasure. My absolute pleasure.
Really appreciate you. And whether you think you're not going to be hiring someone,
yeah,
or this doesn't apply to you, I guarantee you're going to need help somewhere along the way.
Yes.
And there's going to be someone that you need for a project. And these things are the types of things you want to be considering. So go to the bit.ly steps to scale and make sure you get the checklist and just save it. Put it in a file that says employment or something along those lines.
Yes.
And I'm going to put those in all the comments so that everybody can have it.
Yes.
And then the book link. Very good.
I just added that so they don't have to navigate the website. It's right there's the book and the information on that.
Oh, right. Get a free, I'm writing it now.
Yeah.
30-minute consult when you buy the book. I love it.
Awesome.
All right. Fantastic. Lisa Perez, a wealth of knowledge. Thank you so very
An
much for being here
absolute
with us.
pleasure. Thank you for the invitation to share with the
Ah,
community.
you
Always
are
a
so
pleasure.
welcome. You are
Always a
so
pleasure.
welcome. Thank you, everyone, for being with us on this fabulous Wow Wednesday. Have a great day. Enjoy whatever it is you're up to today, and be sure to make it a Wow Wednesday. Bye bye, everybody.